I think, and I had a conversation this morning with somebody in the space, and it was, one of the biggest skills I think like RevOps practitioners now are missing is like the DevOps side of things. Like how many people on your RevOps team have used GitHub and like understand how to like actually commit and like deploy in that. And like that's now this new name of the game of this versus like we don't want. And like I'm going back to like the governance and like the IP protection and that, right? Like everyone starts building everything local on their machines and Bob quits, what happens, right? And you see that even like with Claude today, there isn't this transfer of IP and like easy management of what's getting built. And I think like businesses really need to make sure they have the right policies and protections around that and just deployments.
Today's talk, we're going to be talking about hype, hope, and what works now. And that's hope is not a strategy, as we know, but a lot of people are approaching AI in so many different ways, some better than others. And I want to get us kicked off today. Like AI is reshaping go to market, especially. But what's real? What's inflated, and what's actually driving revenue today? I have three incredible guests. We have three incredible guests. We have Guru, Jonathan, and Molly. Do you all want to introduce yourselves quickly?
Ladies first.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm happy to be here. Molly Bodensteiner. I have been in go-to-market operations for the last 15 years and like generally excited about where we're going. I know we talked about panic just a few minutes ago, and there are some moments of panic and concern, but just really excited about just how AI, automation, transformation can shape go-to-market when done the right way.
Jonathan?
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Carford. Some people call me Coach. I have a cool name because I don't have a natural name like Guru, so my nickname is Coach. I'm really excited to be here. Nothing but a fan of you, Jared, and the rest of the people here. And I'm currently the VP of GTM strategy and marketing over at Momentum. I've been in AI deep for 5 years and RevOps enablement for about the same time as Molly has, about 15 years now. So been a fun, crazy ride.
I was expecting Salesforce to be the end of that title. I was waiting for bated
It's
breath.
not, we're not
Not
there
yet.
yet, we're not there yet. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Congratulations on this.
Maybe a month or
Appreciate
two.
it.
In a month or two, he's either going to be the same title at Salesforce or looking for his next adventure. Just,
We'll see, man. We'll see how it goes.
but you'll call the shots. That's awesome, Guru.
Thank you, Jared. I've been a follower of Coach K, so I know where his heart is. A quick introduction about myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Guru Raj. You can call me Guru in short. I'm the founder of ThriveStack. I've done 2 startups before, but the third one is completely bootstrapped and completely clueless on how AI is going to transform us. We've been building in ThriveStack for B2B SaaS companies, with the prime belief that AI, growth, and GTM are now at the intersection. We have been trying to unify GTM, product revenue, and customer success together into one intelligence layer. Happy to be here.
So, like the hype and customer expectations, let's just jump into it.
Yeah, I think, maybe let's start with, the primary premise. I think, many of the listeners are coming in, as well. And, maybe I'll also roll this question to Molly and Jonathan. We seem to be at an inflection point in GTM. Customers have changed their expectations. Buyers, essentially are now coming in, by doing a lot more research before they even come to your website. AI seems to have completely reset what the buyers are expecting. To name a few, we've started to see customers asking very pointed questions, not necessarily wait for the demo to come in. They're expecting deeper personalization from your own GTM channels coming in. It feels like the attention span is decreasing a lot faster. And they're looking for, hey, I have a question, I need an answer. Can a product solve this question or not? We've also seen large foundation labs like maybe Copilots being launched, Anthropic, OpenAI. They're all started to power various experiences. So let me maybe open up the question, maybe first to Molly and then to Jonathan. In your mind, what are the top 3 or 4 use cases that you're seeing where AI is actually starting to being used in GTM today? And I know Jonathan has a lot of opinions. He's got his own podcast and a channel towards it. But maybe that's why I want to start with Molly first, and maybe it'll go to Jonathan.
Yeah, so I think some of the main use cases, right? And like from my standpoint, it's the simple ones. I'm in this world, as you talked about, like there's no more excuses for dropping follow-up balls and like missing follow-throughs and like those pieces. Like no one, if I have a seller in my organization who's like, I forgot to do something, right, in a sales cycle, like that can't happen anymore. So I think some of those key use cases are, really driven around like the right, I'm going to call it process adherence and process automation, but one of the things that I still am very weary of is like the automated emails and like those things that are coming through. Like consumers can catch those, right? So we've not only shortened our attention spans because, quite frankly, if I sit in a demo with you and I don't have a follow up in like 15 minutes, I'm probably concerned. But it also still wants that level of personalization because we know AI can produce it and automation can help deliver it, but you want the human judgment behind it to still give me like the warm, I'm going to say the warm and fuzzies. So I think that orchestration of process and like speed to execution is one of the big use cases. The other one that I think is probably from a RevOps perspective, the most impactful for me is like the data intelligence, right? So like self-serve analytics and being able to model data quicker than I've ever been able to and actually produce models without having to use R or other statistical tools just gives me far better signal and like better decision making based on data, with the caveat of that is like you actually have to have a good data foundation. And I think that's one of the biggest gaps that everyone is running into when they're trying to orchestrate.
Yeah, Molly is always so wise. So I'll add a few things to add. In the class we teach for CROs, I partner up with a sales assembly. We teach 50 CROs about AI strategy and how to think about it. And there's a framework that I use called OR, which is optimize, amplify, and reinvent. And unless you're a brand new company building things from scratch, you can start with reinvent and kind of think about things way differently. But most people are already in flight and they have to rebuild things as they go, which is why I think optimize, like what Molly was talking about, it's the pretty mundane, menial little task stuff that gets in the way. I think the thing is, though, a lot of people are realizing that the use cases are, like, for example, auto writing an email is awesome. And I think it's a very useful thing to do when you have context from the opportunity of the calls. The challenge is that's not necessarily going to lift revenue. So the question I always ask is, what are the things we can do to optimize the time that actually impacts revenue beyond just writing emails? And again, this is not to diss on Molly, because I think the email thing is actually really useful. It's just a very, very, very small part of a larger thing. And it's just trying to figure out how do we optimize it so much so that it makes like dramatic changes on sales cycle, on win ratios, and et cetera, to make sure that we can have larger impacts beyond just, I saved 30 seconds with an email, So that's where I think things are going, is more of the optimizing as much as possible, which is where you start and you go up the chain as you go.
Yeah, and I think no, it's a great call out, right? With the optimizing there, I think something that I've ran into and love to get your thoughts. Sorry, we're going to just take over this talk track here. So like stacking of the Legos, right? Because we can optimize so much and, when you're trying to manage the change management on this, like how do you make sure you're getting that right foundation of like, okay, I've made this behavioral change. Now it's time for the next one and time for the next one versus just the like opening the floodgate and saying like, okay, great. Now you're expected to know these 1,000 things are going to happen and figure out what to do.
That's me, Molly.
Or to anyone, right?
Okay.
So like I'm gonna hit on the change management because I do think that's one of like the biggest areas that companies are failing at in this. Just because I can doesn't mean I should, and then if I do, will I make sure it actually worked?
So if I can interject and ask this question. So I think there are two parts of the equation, right? One is, what are the customers expecting, right? Because that's changing quite a bit. And how can the companies react to it? I think, Molly, you've mentioned various poll points on how the companies can react, orchestration, personalization, all of that. But if I switch that to customer expectations, has that changed maybe in the last 1 year or so?
Absolutely, right? I think it's changed in even like, to be honest, like the last 4 weeks, right? I think we now all live in a world of, well, we can just build this ourselves, right? So when you think about like customers who are actually looking for new tools, I think any CFO and procurement and engineer that you talk to and say, hey, I think we're going to go buy this tool, like their immediate response is going to be like, well, can't we just build this ourselves in-house? And this goes back to like the can versus should component of things too. And so for, I think, businesses and how you're working with consumers, it's how you're going to differentiate yourself beyond just somebody being able to go do it themselves.
Okay, so build versus buy is becoming more prominent. What else do you see out there, purely from a customer expectation standpoint?
Everyone wants the easy button, and they want the easy button even more now, right? The operational complexity even though it still exists, is so masked now. Like I think you used to say, like if you were talking about like an ERP implementation or a CPQ implementation, something like that, still heavily operationally complex. Like I think we're able to hide a little bit more of that. The risk of that is the output is so much worse for what people are getting built because they're now in this front end shiny object versus like the back end actual infrastructure and architecture that will scale.
That makes sense. Jonathan, any thoughts on your views on the customer expectation, at least the buyer's journey?
I'm going to touch on hers because actually I have a couple of thoughts on change management. I'll talk about buyer's journey. First, with change management, I think that with AI right now, when AI is used well, it's done in a way so that the change management you do is not so much what the person is now doing, but more of what they're not doing anymore. So it's like, how do I help them shift gears of what they were doing before and optimize their time when they're not writing emails and filling in the CRM and also the stuff? How do they fill in the gaps of time? Which I think that's in and of itself a change management. I think a lot of people right now, when I see reports from Bain and from Boston Consulting Group and others, that people are expecting to throw ChatGPT licenses or Copilot licenses at people and expecting transformational change. And it doesn't happen because people don't know how to use them and because the tools aren't made to do that, So I think that's part of the problem is the change management expected is making everyone a prompt engineer and expecting this massive result, which doesn't happen. To Molly's point, it's the infrastructure, it's the back end that makes, at least for the internal teams, the biggest difference. And to your point, that same result is the expectation of customers. So they're expecting that same type of thing to where you have this dramatic, crazy change that's not always that easy because the whole back end needs to be shifted as a result, which it's not prepared for. It's like Google just came out 10 days ago. They have the web MCP because the entire internet was made for humans. It wasn't made for AI. So they have to rebuild the entire infrastructure of the internet so that AI can actually peruse the data better. It's like everywhere you look, everyone's like redoing all the guts to make sure it's working in the new world we're going to.
I have a question to layer on this, like with the change management. How do you create a culture of everyone being able to better use AI versus, just like the operational leader setting up these new processes and stuff? Like a new seller today needs to have some sort of grasp on creativity and things without changing the whole organizational structure. Like how do you create that culture? Because like if the famous email from the head of Shopify that said figure out AI, do this, and I mean there's something to that, but like organizations can benefit at a certain level too, I think, with some guardrails, right?
Well, I was going to say the thing I think not to do, right? And like what I've seen not work well is fear, right? And I think a lot of companies that are taking like this like AI or die type approach and like this fear-based component, like will be the ones that will lose great talent. They're going to lose their best AI talent, to be honest with you. They're not going to lose the people who are like scared to adopt. They likely will, but like the people who are really embracing AI and like enjoy it and like want to be the thought leaders of it and lean into it don't want to sit in an environment where they feel like they are not able to be as creative as they want to be because of a fear-based culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I build upon that a little bit? So I think we'll come to the culture. Maybe we'll talk about that. But I think the general buyer's expectations is changing quite rapidly. I'll give maybe 2 or 3 concrete examples. So we ourselves are a B2B SaaS product. We are a growth intelligence. So we deploy pixels and all of that on marketing, product revenue, and all of that, right? So we have various SaaS companies that we just had a conversation even last week. 3 telltale signs are happening for them, right? The first one is the marketing websites. The traffic on the marketing websites are dropping like crazy. For 2 of our customers, it dropped more than 80%. And they aren't ready for AEO coming in, right? So they're not being shown up on the Google search engine anymore. I mean, they are if they do an ad or whatever that it is, but the organic traffic is not coming to the marketing website. So the traffic has dropped. Number 2 telltale sign, when they are trying to pitch to their customers, the customers are essentially researching everything beforehand. Tools like Reddit, tools like Google, ChatGPT, Perplexities, allowing them to be able to go compare one vendor versus another vendor on a particular problem. And if they don't like what they see on the answer, they don't even attempt to go to the website, have a demo, or even do a trial of the product. So that's a huge thing. Essentially, the research about a vendor and the solution that they have is happening much, much before. The third telltale sign, is that when they get a chance to talk to the customer tells them that we only have AI budget. We don't have traditional SaaS budget. We don't have traditional IT budget. So that the budget has moved, almost 85% of the budget has moved towards AI. And this is only from our own customer base. Very likely, maybe Jonathan might know a lot more about, he teaches in the in the GTM AI Academy. What else might have? But I think these are three signs that I'm seeing across the board. Traffic is dropping. Research is happening much before you're even having a conversation. And then the capital shift, especially at the enterprise level or mid to enterprise level, is shifting more towards AI and not on traditional SaaS. And we'll come back to the culture a little bit, but hopefully this gives the perspective that this is changing and this is inducing fear in the SaaS team that, hey, you know what, traffic is dropping, marketing is going bonkers, product trials are starting to drop, and the product team is going bonkers, and the GTM team is essentially doing, hey, you know what, let's do what we have always done, more outbound, more outbound, more outbound, and maybe more personalized outbound. So that's creating more and more spam on the customers' inboxes. I'll pause here, maybe head over to Jonathan. You looks like you're trying to say something.
I'm coughing because I've been a little bit sick, so I apologize for. I'm trying not to let you guys bask in my coughing. Can I ask, these companies you're talking to, are they all in tech?
They are all tech.
They're all tech. Okay. I was going to say, because in the academy, I have a lot of people from different industries, and I have a lot of people who are experiencing the exact opposite as far as like the web traffic and that kind of stuff. There's still some industries they're still kind of old school and they don't use any of the AI tools. The search is still classic Google search, And I know from my experience with Momentum, like we like quadrupled our web lands and pages and conversions onto website in the last year. So it's like, I think it depends on where you're at, what the focus is. I also think too that it does require, like, AI in general, whether you're using it or not, has required us to think from first principle type thinking to the effect of like saying, okay, we can't just put out random marketing stuff and expect people just to say, this is amazing, because it's mostly is junk. What we need to do is think about what is actually valuable to the ICP and how can I create more of that so that I can create the center of gravity, that they come to me. If I can do more of that, then they'll come to the website. It's just that if there's nothing valuable to come to, why would they go in the first place? So I just shifted my thinking, which is where we should have been in the first place. But I just see it as a pattern across teams, sales, RevOps. It's like sales is going more to relationship-based selling, which should have been in the first place, versus just chucking out emails at everyone. It's like we're going back to first principle thinking of everything, which I love.
That's wonderful.
And systems thinking of everything.
Yeah, I think that gives a sense. Maybe back to you, Jared. I think we've touched upon a whole bunch of things there.
Yes. Now, like, budgets floating towards AI, heard, but at the same point, everyone here has heard the 95% of AI pilots fail stat line, and if that's going up or down, that's real. So, like, understanding what's working versus what's hype. Just because money's flowing there doesn't mean it's working, right? So just diving in, and we can start with Molly. Like, which AI use cases are generating real ROI today?
Yeah, and I go back to everyone talking about, I laughed and smirked when we talked about like AI budget, right? Because like every tool right now is an AI tool, it sounds like. So it's like, how do you really define that? And we also use this word AI so broadly when it's actually might be automation and could be other pieces of this, right? So it's like AI, but it's like, is it really? But I'll get off that soapbox. When we think about like the use cases that are actually generating like real ROI that I've seen firsthand, right? Like one of the biggest ones for me has been like ramp time for employees, right? So like context is so key in organizations, especially when you think about like hiring a new sales rep, right? This like institutional knowledge and like having it on demand, whether that's in, a Slack bot or, co-pilots, et cetera, there, you're able to really help streamline and increase the speed to adoption and onboarding for reps, right? So like being able to build more productivity sooner from a new hire is like huge from an ROI standpoint. and also just from a retention standpoint if you're setting them up for success. So I think that's been one that we've seen just true ROI on.
How have you set it up at your org to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so really making sure like you've got the right co-pilot, you've got the right, I'm going to say guardrails within systems, and like they're able to understand that flow of work, getting call coaching, right? Real-time call coaching, real-time call feedback, AI role plays on this, like preparing them to get on the phone sooner, but also having those feedback loops immediately. I'm not waiting for my manager to listen to my call and give me feedback and like doing that on their time, right? It's happening immediately, and I'm able to actually do role play in a way that is closer to a true situation and feels more authentic than just, what they were doing probably, let's call it 6 to 12 months ago, which were just these, out of the box bots that really didn't match the business or have that context. Because we're now able to get call transcripts and like real information back in training and that grounding in place, like it's far more relevant.
And you're specifically talking about like AI role play, like
Yes.
training from Gong or related calls into AI to give like really contextual role
Yeah.
plays.
Correct. And like getting a rep, not just putting them on the phone day one, but right, like putting them through an actual enablement program with the role plays, with the follow up, and like letting them run that sales cycle, but having the right guardrails behind it that's scoring them and giving them real time feedback, right? So I think you think about like conversational intelligence, like I think that is such a key now for not only the sales managers and leadership, but being able to take the what did I hear on a call and pump that signal to product back into marketing, right? Like those feedback loops and like that flywheel is just so strong now that we're able to deliver that right information and continue to keep that evolution of context out, right? And like I think that's something we haven't been able to do before. Like you should have no stale marketing material ever. It should constantly be evolving and be dynamic.
Now, I'm curious, do you have like ROI on that or like before and after implementing that, like the old way team of
Yeah, so I mean, things
folks?
that we've always looked at, right, is like call scoring. So being able to put an actual like scorecard on calls and being able to look at like how are reps improving their calls, but looking at their time to production, right? So if average ramp time was, 3 months, are you seeing that decrease? Are you seeing stages in your funnel have better velocity, right? The metrics should speak to them for themselves, and then being able to back into the adoption and build that correlation is key.
And have you seen reps even happier with this new process than the past one? Like we
Yeah,
forget about the
because
qualitative.
they're making money, right? Like if you can
Yeah,
help a rep make money faster, I mean, they're gonna smile all day long.
good rep for sure, and probably weed out the others. But anyway, Jonathan, what about yourself? Like which AI use cases are generating real ROI today for you?
All right, well, I gotta go on my soapbox. My turn, Molly. First off, so the 95% that you're talking about is the MIT study. It was not peer reviewed, so the study is absolute
Fair.
bunk. So I have to say this, like it's the
What
worst
what's
study
the
I've ever
real
seen in
number?
life. Well, I'll tell you is I only know my data that I can prove, which is we did the voice of the market report with Momentum, where we took the information we had from first sales calls and we looked at the first 6 months of the year versus the last 6 months of the year and just compared the differences between the two. And the first 6 months of the year was more like 7 to 10, and the last 6 months of the year it's more like 20. So it's dramatically shifted over that time to where people are talking positively about AI and that they're having good
Yeah.
results. They need some very obviously with Momentum, it's a very specific use case. But in general, like you'd be surprised how much information we get just from talking about AI in general, even if it has nothing to do with us, which is fascinating. So from a use cases standpoint, there I have a slew of things. I'll give you one that just came on the podcast this last week. So Sendoso came on the podcast and they had their CEO, their head of growth, and then the GTM engineer. And what they did is they had 15 SDRs before AI, I should say, before optimize it, 15 SDRs doing 10 to 15% of pipeline production. They wanted to redo things, so they took a couple months to rethink how they're doing it. So they stripped out the SDRs who weren't performing, went down to like one, rebuilt the process in 2 months, optimize it, and by the time 2 months were by month three, they're back up to the same level with three SDRs they were before with 15. And then now past month six, they have 4 to 5 SDRs doing 30% of pipeline production. So a third of the team, double the result, which is crazy. Another one is, I mean, I could talk about Momentum, and I know Molly's had this with this and other tech, but like just the time with different things going on inside the team, from filling a CRM or running out emails. We have so many customers who went down from 13 days of turnaround time from communicating internally. That slows down the sales process down to one. So like that process itself speeds the sales cycle. Another one of my friends over at OneMind, this is a little bit different tech because it's not optimizing the human. It's literally just doing something that humans can't do. With my friend over at Xperity, it's a healthcare tech. For every 100 leads that comes into the website, the OneMind tech is converting 2.5 times more than the humans are, which is crazy. So, and then you have like Seismic, and there's a HubSpot. I could go on forever about OneMind because they have a fascinating data, but there's a lot of really cool use cases. Just kind of depends on which one you want me to talk about. We go across the org if you wanted to.
Which one has had the biggest impact for you?
For me personally?
For your team. The first one we did.
Yeah, it's a good question because I use AI all over the place. It's like asking which breath is the best one. I'm like, I have all of them. Yeah, it's hard to say. I would say for me personally in marketing, I use a couple of tech, which is like one's called Searchable. I'm good friends with the founder. I don't advise them. I'm not a affiliate, but it's called Searchable. It does AEO, GEO optimization. So we did a test run where I had this crazy weird process that my human writer goes through to create this really good in-depth blogs and other content. And I had her do it versus the searchable agent. And they have like obviously your entire blog and you have Google Search Analytics and all this other stuff in there. And so we did this competition where I said, okay, it's you versus searchable. Let's see how you perform on website traffic. And the stuff that Searchable created from scratch that was trained on all of her stuff and then Google Analytics SEO information outperformed what I had her do before, which was very optimized, by the way, by 4 times, which is crazy. So just having that, and then obviously now we do a lot more stuff with Searchable, and the content it's giving us is awesome. It's not slop. It's really good stuff because it's trained on our stuff, our context. It's just fascinating to see how much of a difference it makes with just a small change of an AI tech. It's crazy.
I love it. Now,
And Jonathan,
yeah,
is
Guru, what do you have?
Searchable a bot on?
No, it's a AEO GEO analysis tool, but it uses Google Search Analytics and Google Search Console to help inform it along with context from your website and team. I used another one called Peak too, but in this circumstance, I tested Searchable specifically, so I know the results. So
Makes sense.
pretty fun.
I think that's where
Yeah.
it's all going. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
If my eyes drift, it's because I'm just putting searchable into Perplexity and searchable AEO. It's not placing high there. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all right. I'll tell him. I'll give him feedback.
They have such a hard keyword, and I always hate going to conferences or stuff and allowing somebody to put my uh, domain in because I haven't been focusing on updating it. And we have a small team, and I'm like, I know, man, or ma'am.
I'm with you.
But Guru, do you have any AI use cases for yourself as well that are like
You
really
gotta tell him.
generating a
You
lot
gotta
of
tell me you told me, Guru. That stuff you told me was awesome. Like you gotta spill the beans.
I will spill the beans on it. I'm working with
Yeah.
Jared to make that happen a little bit as well. So I think we have 3 use cases. The first one is for marketing, where we were a small startup, so getting recognized, getting known, and finding ourselves in Google search results and AI and ChatGPT was very important at the very outset itself. So what we did, is essentially instead of we building blogs and then figuring out an SEO strategy, we went completely bonkers on newsletter-led growth. So we wrote the blogs with AI and we would publish them, and then we would send the traffic over to our marketing and product websites and start measuring them on who's opening, why is opening, are they opening, and are they coming back at all or not. So using AI, we're able to go stitch the visitor to the user, on marketing, on the product. That was very important at the early stages. The second one, I think, I second what Molly is saying. Getting call recording was the first step, but figuring out how to use the call recording, not just to train, the reps, but also being able to say that, hey, these are the things that customers have said that they want within the product. Open up Jira tickets or open up Azure DevOps tickets and tag them associated to the customer. Earlier, we would not have like either the customer success or the sales assist when they have a conversation with the customer. They would take notes, but that notes would not translate into, hey, these are the things within the product that if you build, we will actually buy. So now we are able to go ahead and translate that into open tickets or requests within the product, and the product team is getting flooded right now with many feature requests. But so be it. That has a viral aspect within the team as well. And of course, the sales reps are easy to, it's easy for them to respond very quickly to the customer request within 15 minutes of the call with the summary notes and all of that. Those are all positive. The third thing that we have seen is more on the sales side. I think we're starting to work with a lot more customers in that space as well. They've been using HubSpot, and they don't get the full journey visibility within HubSpot. They will only get, hey, sales team will have the sales attributes, marketing will have its marketing attributes, and nothing at all about the product, nothing at all about the retention, expansion, billing, revenue. Nothing of that comes into the HubSpot. So we've been trying to pioneer on how to bring all of this growth signals back into HubSpot or the CRM of your choice to be able to go look at, hey, how did we get this particular customer? All right, through this particular campaign. How much are they paying? This is the billing issue. Have they been activated? No, they have not been activated. Let's automatically assign. So we starting to see a lot more automation yet, but it's the AI correlation that is coming in. So that's the third use case that we see where AI has a significant impact of unifying the GTM, the product, the revenue, and the customer success teams on the same element of it. The stitching is the most difficult part. It's the stitching of or the correlation between marketing and product and revenue and customer success, and so on and so forth. And that's getting done by AI. So thankfully, we are happy about it. Those are the top three, I think I would say.
I love that. Now, where are teams over automating or buying tools without strategy? We could start with Jonathan on that one.
Buying tools without strategy happens all the time.
Like,
Building tools without strategy too.
You're just building. You're like, oh, what are we doing? Look at this open cloth thing. Cool.
Shiny syndrome.
So everywhere. Great.
I think it really does happen everywhere. I think what we talked about before with like the key components of the sales or customer success process, whatever you, that lean too much into AI. Like, for example, when you're spam canning people with just an AI product to do the spam canning of stuff is not helpful. Like, in fact, our SDR team finds the more human they are, I mean, like, they leave videos and leave notes and that kind of stuff, the better the response is, because people are tired of getting blasted by AI shenanigans. Now, I personally don't care if someone uses AI or not to talk to me. I do care if the quality is good. So I don't care which way you go. Just give me good quality, So, and I think, sadly, a lot of people shortcut a lot because they think that just the speed and volume is going to save them, and it doesn't.
It has the opposite effect, in fact.
Yeah.
Volume has a negative impact.
I just remember receiving no less than 6 phone calls when Isaac Morehouse, God bless him, did something like with his healthcare plan. And I'm like, by the second one, I'm like, okay, this was a trigger that everybody picked up.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about these shiny tools, right? I think Jared, you mentioned about the calls, and I think Molly has mentioned about the AI SDR, kind of prospecting. If you join both of them together, there's so many tools out there. There's more than 700 plus AI SDR tools now. There are so many dialers and like Nooks and so many out there. It's easy to experiment, and that's where to answer your question, the teams are taking, making a decision to that I'm going to go experiment without a strategy. And they would go deploy Nooks, and they will go deploy AI SDR. And I'll spend about like 3K, 4K, 5K on that. And say, hey, you know what? I spent, the whole month's budget on something like this, and now I have no output. And then they shut it down. They don't give enough time, for it to, so this aspect of deciding a tool, doing a crawl, walk, run, it's very rare. It's very rare in GTM teams. Essentially they are going off with, I want to go do this. I want to try this. Give me a blank check and let me see how it turns out to be. I'm not sure how, Molly, you've been on the RevOps space quite a bit more. Is that a trend that you've seen across as well? Hey, shiny tools, go start.
Yeah.
Right, and throw it away.
I think you're starting to do, it's like just because I can doesn't mean I should, right? And so we're in this state of a lot of can, and like can is competency and capability, which is easier than ever. And like now we're trying to get back to like the should. I think a lot of what we're doing as well is automating like actual things that are broken. So I think, Jonathan, I think you talked about like going back with the Sendoso example and like re-evaluating the process, right? I don't think people are doing that. I think everyone is automating on poor processes versus actually fixing them. And we all know like AI and automation like is not going to repair a bad process or poor data or bad rep behavior. It might surface it, but I think people aren't looking at that. They're going from A to outcome versus like A to B to C and like the actual inputs that you need to be successful too.
And early stage companies sometimes are going from no process to automation and AI, and that's fun. Completely negating first principles thinking. Like hopped on a call the other day and somebody know anything is just like, I need your help doing outbound. I'm like, okay, tell me
Cool.
more. Like this is not knowing nothing about you based on this. It feels like a follow the leader or follow everyone else type of plan. Yeah, it's people aren't thinking they need revenue. They don't necessarily need outbound. They might, but yeah.
And you have to remember, like, process produces data, right? So, like, and data actually drives insights, which is going to create your outcomes. So, by not having the right process or the right consistency around your process, like, you're just creating more data problem.
Now, talking about data, good segue. What foundational data and process maturity are required, Molly?
I mean, let's get to the basics, right? Like, I don't think you could pull anyone anywhere that would say their data is perfect. Like, that is not a thing. But I think if you asked people if they were building on really poor data foundations, they would all say yes, right? And I think that that's a huge problem when we're looking at like that actual data foundation and your semantic layers, your AI models like aren't going to work without having that structured data underneath them. And I that's one of the biggest like misses that I'm starting to see like in the market that people aren't talking about, right? And so I think you're going to start learning like you're just producing garbage. And there's not generally a good strategy around that that I'm hearing from a lot of organizations here.
Jonathan, any that thing to add to that?
No, I mean, what Molly said is absolutely correct. It's in order for I'll take it from the other side. Like she's talking definitely from more RevOps process side, but like I'll talk from the AI side. AI's fuel is data. And if you don't have good, clean, structured data, you're going to be very limited on what you can do from an AI agent, automation, agentic layer stuff. You know, it's like the humans need it, do analysis and for their own stuff, but so does AI. And like what she just said is absolutely correct that people expect magic of AI when their data is a mess and incomplete and not missing or inaccurate or something. So it's like that has to be the first part of it. So for me, if anyone's listening, I'd focus on where and how is your third party status for your particular company, and then how is your first party data? I mean, like product usage and whatever's going on inside your company, as well as conversations, and how clean and how I would say how confident are you in both of those categories? Because when you have both those things locked in, that's when really cool magic stuff happens. Like when someone takes the time, which it might take 3 to 6 months to get that data in a good place, but to me, I call it the slingshot effect, that when you take the time to make your process and your data correct, it feels like you're a rock in a slot going backwards because you are. And you're like, oh no, but open clock came out. I'm behind on the times and I'm not going to make it. Like, don't worry about that. Focus on your stuff. And as soon as you get to ready, you launch. And like Sendoso, within 4 months, even though they took time to slow down, by month 4, they're already out accelerating what they were pacing before. So it's like you have to take the time to slow down so you can speed up even faster.
Let's be honest, by the time you've slowed down to speed up that other model, there's going to be a new one. So like you're fine.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
That's right.
I think, maybe if I can add a little bit to what Molly and Jonathan are saying. I think the problem with data is it's siloed. Everyone, don't think about data as a very normal thing to do. So they will go and experiment with. Take an example of, I want to use an AI SDR tool. I'll go shoot at it. Nobody comes and looks back and how many emails did we send? What's the click rates? What's the open rate? Messages are working well. And they only go after, did we get a lead or not? Did we close a deal or not through this new process? I think, maybe if you circle back, Winning by Design has a beautiful artifact on the bow tie revenue architecture. The unfortunate part is that the people who understand the bow tie revenue architecture, they sit in the RevOps space. GTM teams, they only focus on acquisition, maybe call, conversations, and all of that. Customer success teams looks at like first party data with product engagement, customer support tickets, and all of that. None of that is all unified. In general, I think there are these 5 buckets that needs to unify, but nobody makes an attempt, at least until they are the size of momentum or even bigger to go and unify that. I'm typically seeing that if you reach an inflection point of about 15 to 20, 25 million ARR, that's when you start thinking, hey, you know what? We need to start thinking about data. We need to start thinking about processes. We need to start before all of that. It's all mavericks running, running and screaming across.
Not gonna lie, early stage, early on, I had the thought like somebody else is gonna fix this as I'm building from 0 to 1. Not gonna lie, but that's real and that's important.
To counter that, right? Like in early stage, right? Some of the process things you don't know because you are in this bucket of, hypotheses and testing, right? But like
Yeah.
without understanding the data, you still don't know what's working and what's not, right? So you do need to measure. But like anyone who is early stage here, like the easiest time to build data infrastructure is when you have very little data, like starting now on it and like building that habit and building like that will just empower you for scale. And like especially think about going and trying to raise, and when you're ready for that, like the more you have that in place, like just the more polished and more professional and just easier everything flows from that.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan keeps saying this as well. Data needs data. AI needs insights. Without data, without insights, you can't really automate anything. You can't really act on any of that. I think momentum essentially, jabbed on to, this whole conversation pieces, the acquisition pieces, and being able to go figure out, correlate, and automate. That's a wonderful thing to do. But I think, as an enterprise customer who's listening, or as a SaaS company who's listening, you probably have data at across all layers of your customer journey. Acquisition is one of it, product activation, product usage, revenue. You have customer success, support tickets. And I think if you're listening, the best time to unify that is probably now. And the worst time to do that is after you get to 25 million ARR. That's when you already have about 10 different tools. You will have marketing analytics tools, you will have revenue analytics tools, you have CSM tools, call logging tools, and there's no way that you'll be able to go unify that. So take Molly's advice and act on it if you can right now.
I think part of the problem, hire Marley, she'll fix it. I think part of the problem is though, enterprises don't have, again, from both the academy and from the momentum side, like a lot of companies have like these security protocols and like on some levels, the tech does not exist to either healthily integrate safely into all the tech stack they have. It just doesn't happen yet. I think it will, but it's not there yet. And then I think there's going to be a level where, I mean, I know we diss on OpenClaw a lot, but OpenClaw is actually a fascinating technology that once we actually do have a secure version of it, it's going to unlock so much stuff because there's so many enterprises, to your point, that are just siloed like crazy, but they do that on purpose to make sure that security and governance and also their shenanigans doesn't get messed up by some AI going crazy, So
yeah, and I think on like the go-to-market ops side, right? Like I think, and I had a conversation this morning with somebody in the space, and it was, one of the biggest skills I think like RevOps practitioners now are missing is like the DevOps side of things. Like how many people on your RevOps team have used GitHub and like understand how to like actually commit and like deploy in that? And like that's now this new name of the game of this versus like we don't want, and like I'm going back to like the governance and like the IP protection and that, right? Like everyone starts building everything local on their machines and Bob quits, what happens, right? And you see that even like with Claude today, there isn't this transfer of IP and like easy management of what's getting built. And I think like businesses really need to make sure they have the right policies and protections around that and just deployments.
Yeah, there are so many crazy stories on that. Somebody bought an AI SDR tool, ran it on their own. Somebody bought HeyReach, ran it on their own LinkedIn, and they quit. And all your prospecting has now stopped. Nobody has access to those tools anymore. So you're absolutely right on that, Molly. Maybe Molly, we should have another podcast or webinar just on this particular topic of data governance and RevOps and things. That's a side note, though.
And what happens when Claude has a sick day, right? Somebody made a great post on that the other day. Is like what happens when your workforce is taking a sick day.
Taking this a step further, I don't know if you read the post from Elias Torres on Agency yesterday, where he said his dev team is now handling clients. And they're not actually developing a line of code. They've developed intern to help with that. So the feedback loops are coming from devs managing clients, going to make their intern, which they built and are deploying, put code out. So like, what do you think about that, Molly? Full feedback loop there.
Right. I mean, I think
Like shorten the heck out of that.
it's going to get just super interesting, right? And like I think we're going to see just roles change drastically. And my advice to anyone is like, especially people in leadership positions, you've got to be closer to the work. If you are not closer to the work right now, you won't have a job. I mean, I hate being like you won't have a job, but like you won't have the work to do
We'll
because you've
have the
got to
work. Yeah.
now get a lot deeper into it.
Somebody else who knows how to do it will do it. I think, Jared, I'll take your anecdote a little bit. Just last week, we met with a SaaS company. They fired their UX teams. They fired their product managers. They have their senior developers who act and are in front of the customers. And this, I think this will probably have goosebumps, if you will. The senior engineer is having a conversation with the customer. The customer says, hey, you know what? This is, here's the UI. Could you make changes like this? He and his team is talking to the customers, and he goes, fires up Claude, makes a small prompt change, deploys it on local, and in 5 minutes time, he actually shows it to the customer. Say, hey, is this what you're talking about? And he says, no, yeah, more or less, but you could also add this column, add that column. So now that calls with the customers are actually becoming more of a design partner calls rather than, hey, I'm sending you a feature request and you figure it out, right? This is now like almost happening in real time. In 10 minutes or 20 minutes after the call, the customer had a demo that he can actually play with. And now you can guess, will the customer stay with you? Will the retention be higher with if you're still acquiring that customer, would you be able to close them much faster? I think the answer to all of these questions would be yes. So I think AI will have the speed if you can use it well. But the unfortunate truth is nobody knows how to use this so fast and so useful yet. And the governance layer and all the siloed mentality still exists. Hopefully that gives you some goosebumps. 10-minute turnaround.
That's the front deployed or forward deployed engineer from
Forward
Palantir
deployment,
Concepts. Yeah, so
Yeah.
which is the same thing from GTM. Like YC Combinator talks about this a lot. And what's going to be fascinating is when AI gets to the point, and it will, where the human who is doing that feedback loop is eradicated. And then it's
Yeah.
going to be a person talking to the tech, and then it starts changing automatically. That's what's going to be crazy.
And also agents are going to be buying probably sooner than we realize, right? Like, and they're going to be making way better decisions than humans, perhaps, who might be making an emotional decision.
Actually, that's happening. And I think in the GTM world, I'm sure you might have heard about this. You can actually go to Claude now. Let's say you don't have a Clay account. You can go to Claude and say, hey, I want to go prospect. Claude will ask you, we have a Clay agent. Do you want to, automatically create an account with Clay? It will go ahead and create an account with Clay, help you set up. And then Claude surface now becomes a primary surface and it sends the data to Clay. Clay manipulates the results and comes back. It's all happening in real time, meaning Claude is able to buy Clay now, and you can actually go pay. I'm not sure whether it is happening yet, but you can pay through the tokens to Claude, and Claude will pay Clay. So agents are buying agents and paying agents.
This is the starting point, but then like also your old RFP process is now created by Claude, injected into Claude to go out and compare Clay versus a handful of tools, right? Directly like Clay, and one's like one-offs like the N8Ns based on the use case that you have and figure out like, is it round peg square holing it going to Clay in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good one. I know we have just about 5 minutes left. Maybe let me ask the next question, some rapid fire questions. So maybe we can close on some of the insights as well. Let me maybe start with Jonathan here. Jonathan, if you were to pick and suggest a GTM AI-enabled GTM stack, what would you pick?
Man.
All the way from prospecting to lead scoring to you can name whatever comes to your mind. No bars and no promotion. Who is listening? This is not a promotion to any of the tools.
You have to come back to me. I have a lot of tools. Go to Molly first. I'll come back to me.
All right, let's go to Molly first.
Searchable.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's a lot of tools, right? I think the things that I think about is conversational intelligence, right? Like that is the number one tool that I want. I think there's so much value in that cross-functionally across go-to-market from just hearing directly from your customers, being able to coach sales reps. Like there's nothing I think more impactful right now than that type of data when used well and being able to put the right automation and insights behind it. Like that's probably my number one wish list thing that I've got to have.
So conversational intelligence for the sales teams.
For the sales teams, for my service teams, for my account management teams, whoever is talking to my customers, I want conversational intelligence behind it.
Yeah, I have to do categories like what she said. So to me, there's the marketing top of funnel stuff. I've been rethinking a lot around the website experience of like what that looks like. Do we have to have all the things we have now, you know? So having a tool like a OneMind that can actually gather and talk to people on the website. So like what we have now is we go to a website and we have to click through the buttons and the menu, that kind of stuff. But what if we have an AI that we just talk to that zip through it for us? Like it's a different experience, you know? So I look through that lens. I need some way to be able to amplify the message so they can come to the website in the first place. So any tool that can help me amplify that. So like right now for me, that's like a GenSpark, that's Claude Code, that's Claude Cowork. There's a Manus. I use a lot of those tools for that top of mind or top end.
Sorry, let me interrupt you there. Is that for
Yeah.
building the website? And
No, it's for content. It's content
it's for
production.
building the content.
Yeah. I still use humans for design, but at some point someone's going to figure out the design component for enterprise level branding, but it's just not there yet. So right now I have humans for that. And even when I do have AI, I'm going to give it to my human designers, let them go frolic in the design land and have fun. From there, it's like tools like Searchable, making sure I know what the heck's going on in the search space. I do think that some sort of foundational data layer like a Snowflake or like a source Salesforce of some kind. Like I think Salesforce is awesome for the new agentic world because, and I'm not saying it's because of the obvious, I've thought this for a long time, it structures data. So some sort of system, Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever, that can structure data so that agents have a way to get in, access, and get out that's structured so it has to go through the mess is powerful. Using a CI tool is very, very powerful. And then any way you can use to help the customers along with their journey, that could take the form of a lot of different types of technology, but there's more and more erupting where it's the AI is meant for the customer and for the buyer, not for the seller. Because so much tech we talk right now is seller focused. Like there's more coming out that's more buyer focused. And I'm loving that category. And then lastly, I would say, I don't know, so many good ones. I love a good analysis tool that's more deterministic AI versus probabilistic AI. So I can have an understanding of like looking over the last 6 months, why we won, why we lost, and then looking forward and figuring out where's the patterns and making sure I can mitigate those risks in the meantime. Like we have the data now having the ability to analyze it in masses. So those would be categorically what I go after.
Yeah, that's Thrive Stack, by the way.
Wait, what, did I just tee you up? No.
There's the plug.
There's the plug.
So I think that's great categorization, Jonathan. Right. So I think let me understand. So content, GenSpark and any of the content generators out there, AEO tools, and you have anything for prospecting?
Man, again, categories. The hard part is that I think AI, most prospecting tools we know of, and this is not to diss on them, are trying to do the old way better, faster, easier. And I don't disagree with it. I think there's a better way. So I believe more in the pulling people to me versus me going after them. But with that being said, there's a tool like Sprouts, there's Sales Intel, which is awesome. We use Sample Market, which is phenomenal. Like there's so many really good techs out there you could use, but something like that would be helpful. I just like to focus more on how can I pull them in versus me going after.
Got it. So I think you'll put more eggs in the basket of customers coming to you, the buyers coming to you, rather than you pushing content to them.
This is my personal opinion as a marketer. I thought this even before I did marketing. You could be the worst Apple salesman in the world and do just fine because the brand's so awesome. I want to make a brand that is so awesome that sales not becomes irrelevant, but becomes exceptionally easy. How about that?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's super. We are out of time. Any last words from the experts here? Jonathan, Molly, maybe Jared, you as well.
I just want to say thank you for the time and having me. Just appreciate it. You all three are awesome. So I appreciate being here.
And no, this is fun. And I love these conversations because I think we're just going to continue to learn from each other. I'm looking at my notebook and I'm like, I got a page of notes of things that I got to go look up now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And if AI dropped off the face of the earth tomorrow, we would be fine.
We got your mustache. We'll be fine.
That's right. Trust the mustache.
fine. I don't think we'll be fine. All the VC money that's gone to the AI, that's going to go poof. Nobody's going to like it.
Yeah.
So again, thank you all.
They'll redeploy.
They'll redeploy. That's right. Again, thank you all. And Molly, we should do one more session on RevOps. It looks like there's some content that we should talk through that. Again,
Sure.
thank you all for joining in. It's a pleasure to host. And thank you so much, Jared, for being the moderator.
What a phenomenal panel. We'll give it up one more time for Molly and Jonathan, two of the smartest folks, literally putting points on the board in the arena. Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for having us.